Hope you are all well. Today we'll start another new chapter of forensic medicine, and this chapter is the head injury. Head injury is one of the most important chapters of the MBBS curriculum. Head injury means any type of injury that is sustained by head following any force. That force can be applied accidentally or homicidally. Suicidal head injury is most commonly seen in case of psychiatrically ill persons. So, without further ado, we will start today's discussion. The chapter of head injury is quite big, so I have divided into two parts. In the first part, today we will discuss about mainly the injuries to the scalp and skull bones. That is the bony injuries and the scalp injuries. In the next part, we'll discuss about the traumatic brain injury. Our learning objectives from today's video is that at the end of the lecture, I expect that you guys should be able to identify the different type of scalp injuries, most commonly contusions and lacerations. You guys should be able to enumerate the different type of skull fractures and their salient features. And I would expect that you guys will be able to understand the features and complications of precisely fracture of the base of the skull. Head injury is a moderate state which results from gross or subtle structural changes into the skull with or without involvement of the contents of the skull, that is the brain and the coverings, produced by mechanical forces. Now these mechanical forces can be blunt or sharp. However, blunt force trauma to head is more common. The blunt force may result in injury to the contents of the skull without or with fracture of the skull. That is, skull may be fractured or not. So that extent of the injury is not necessarily proportional to the amount of the force applied. The reason being, the skull has a buttress both outside and inside. On the outside skull bones, they are protected by scalp and hair. So due to presence of the hair, much of the force is dissipated. So even it is seen, even after a huge road traffic accident, the victim has suffered only an intracerebral hemorrhage. However, the skull bones are intact. It is quite common finding in postmortem examinations that there are intracranial hemorrhage, but the skull bones are intact. So fracture of skull is not a constant finding, or conversely there may be fracture of skull but no internal brain injury. First we will start our discussion with scalp. Scalp, as we know, scalp has 5 layers. S for skin, C for connective tissue, A for aponeurosis, L for loose areolar tissue, P for pericranium. So S, C, A, L, P. These are the 5 layers of scalp. So in between these in the dense connective tissue, the blood vessels are there. These blood vessels are connected with the dural venous sinus via emissary veins. Okay, so this much of anatomy you should remember, and this is the suture. Injuries to the scalp is variable. It is more commonly seen in children than adults. In an adult person, the scalp can be up to 15 millimeter thick. The thickness is also variable. And the most wounds that are caused by blunt force to the head, they are usually intentional blows by any heavy or a hard object or fall upon a hard surface. Common injuries are contusions, that is bruise or hematoma, and lacerations. Contusions are most commonly seen within the layer of superficial fossa, that is the connective tissue layer where there are the most of the blood vessels, in the temporalis muscle, or in the layer of the loose areolar tissue. Now, contusions in the superficial fossa, that is in the connective tissue layer, they appear as localized swelling and they are limited in size due to the dense fibrofatty tissue. Extensive hematoma is usually found beneath the layer of Gallia aponeurotica. That's why it is called subgallial hematoma. And subgallial hematoma is a diffuse in distribution. Now, this hematoma, if they're infected, then this infection can spread via the emissary vein into the dural venous sinus. And it is most commonly said that bruising of the scalp or scalp contusions, they are better felt than seen. They are poorly seen is due to because of the presence of scalp hair, and also because as they are diffuse in distribution, the hematoma tends to extend circumferentially, so the elevation is so the naked eye visibility is poor. However, they are better felt because on palpation the body feeling of the hematoma can be felt, and also the periphery, they often feel they are firm and they feel like a depressed fracture. That's why it is often said that scalp hematoma contusions is better felt than seen. So now we'll discuss about the scalp lacerations. If the scalp is lacerated by application of a hard blunt object, the usually it looks like this, and this is usually an example of split laceration. As scalp is spread over a hard bony surface, even if due to application of a blunt force, the edges are apparently sharp. However, on examination by with the hand lens, it can be seen that the edges are ragged. Uh, it is often said that scalp lacerations, they bleed profusely. They bleed because the vessels, the edges are firmly bound, the firmly bound with the fibrofatty tissue. So the arteries which are crossed, they are unable to retract, so the ends of the artery, they remain open and it bleeds for a considerable amount of time. So in scalp lacerations, bleeding is more, and that bleeding is projected about the scene. It can be splattered over the assailant. So blood splatter analysis is of considerable importance in this type of injuries. These are avulsions of the scalp. Avulsions means that an edge, that an part of the scalp which is attached with the offending surface, and as it's a moving part, as the let's assume that it's a machinery. So someone's the worker's hair is caught in the machinery. So as the hair is caught in the moving part of the machine, hair along with the portion of the scalp is pulled away. That's why avulsion results. The same all happens in case of traffic accident also. If the wheel of the vehicle passes over the head, then a portion of the scalp can avulse away. Now we will discuss another thing that's called black eye or periorbital bruising. Black eye is caused, it's an example of ectopic bruise. So it can be caused by direct blow in front of the orbits. So in that case, it's a direct bruising. However, if the injury is to the forehead, then then blood follows gravitational path and it accumulates around the eyes. So This is an example of ectopit bruising. And also there's a third scenario in the fracture of the base of the skull along anterior cranial fossa. The blood leaks through the cracked orbital plate and can accumulate around the eyes, leading to the black eye. So black eye are formed in three different ways. Now we'll discuss about the skull injuries. Now skull outer table is twice than the thickness of the inner. So outer table is more thicker than the inner table. It's a diploid bone. So outer table and inner table both, in between that they are spongy bone. In young male the thickness varies. The occipital bone is thickest rather, and the temporal bones are thinnest. So it follows the temporal bones are most likely to fracture than the other bones. How skull fracture occurs? There are different theories. One theory is fracture due to a local deformation. That is, let's assume an blunt weapon like hammer. When hammer is struck on the cranium, the area where the hammer strikes, it is driven inward. So as this part is driven inward, the outer edges they are stretched beyond their limit of elasticity. So fracture is likely to occur at both these places. At this part, as is driven inward, it will be a depressed area, and there are fracture line surrounding. So this will be a depressed fracture. That's how the fracture is produced. So initially, as the inner table is lesser in thickness, inner table will fracture first, outer table will fracture later, depending on the amount and duration of the application of force. And another is fracture due to general deformation. When the skull is compressed laterally or vertically or longitudinal diameter, that is when the skull is compressed along any axis in between two surfaces. So the parts of the skull which is at the distant part they get bulged and can fracture due to bending. So let's assume that a head is compressed between road and a moving vehicle. So if the person is lying sidewise, then hypothetically the left temporal bone is resting on the road, the car's wheel is on the right temporal bone. So longitudinally the skull is being compressed. So the distant parts are frontal and occipital. So temporal bones will be fractured due to direct application of force, but this frontal and occipital bone also they can get fractured due to excess pressure. So this occurs due to general deformation. Okay. Direct injuries can be caused by compression during forceps delivery of a newborn, or crushing of the head under the wheel of the vehicle, as I said. An object in motion striking the head, that is bullets, bricks, masonry, machinery, dagger, hammer, or a stick, rod, anything. Here the head is stationary, the object is moving. Or the reverse, head in motion striking an object, that is fall from height. A person falls from a ladder and hits the ground head first. So fall and traffic injury. There are also injuries can occur. Direct injuries. Indirect injuries from fall from height and landing on feet. Here the force is on the axial skeleton and the force is transmitted via via the vertebral column up to the skull. So these are direct injuries, and indirect injuries are caused in these scenarios. Different type of fractures of skull. There are 8 different types. fissured fracture, depressed fracture, comminuted fracture, pons fracture, gutter fracture, ringed fracture, perforating fracture, and sutural fracture or Jastrowiec fracture. These 8 fractures we will discuss one by one. First, fissured fracture. Fissure fracture is linear fracture that appear as cracks in the bone. They involve usually the outer tibia, can involve inner tibia or both. They are caused by forcible contact with a broad resisting surface like the ground or an agent having a broad striking surface, that is an wooden plank. So as impact with ground can result to fissure fracture. So the motorcyclists who are traveling without helmet or even with helmet, when they met with an accident and the driver is thrown on the road, then with impact with the hard resisting road, the skull often shows fissure fracture. So motorcyclist fracture is another synonym which is often applied to fissure fracture. Okay. It usually runs parallel to the direction of the force. It can start at the area of counter pressure in the scenario of bilateral compression, that is the head strut between the wheel of the car and road. Pressure is on both temporal bones. So at the area of the counter pressure is frontal to occipital. So a lawn fissure fracture can be there along the lawn axis of the skull. So line of fracture can run parallel to the axis of compression also. The fracture line, it usually follows an irregular course. Usually it's a hair's breadth, and they stop when energy dissipate or they meet another pre-existing fracture or a suture or a foramen. Now this is a law which is called Pape's rule, P-U-P-P-E. Pape's rule says that no two lines of fracture will cross each other. That is, in skull fracture, when there are multiple lines, the the newer fracture line will never cross the older fracture line. It will stop when it meets an pre-existing line of fracture. That is a fissure fracture. So that is Pape's rule. And in autopsy, there can be a multiple fissure fracture in the skull in a road traffic accident case, and some of the fractures can be antemortem and they can be postmortem also. So how to differentiate between an antemortem and postmortem fissure fracture? Usually in the antemortem fissure fracture, within the fracture line there's a trail of blood, but that bleeding is absent in a postmortem fissure fracture. Okay, so this is a fissure fracture. This a fracture line, or this is a fracture line. This is how fissure fracture looks like. Now this is depressed fracture. Depressed fracture is usually caused due to local deformation of the skull due to the same photograph as I said shown before, due to impact with a hammer or similar type of weapon. The outer tibia is driven into the diplo, inner tibia is fractured irregularly. This is also known as fracture a la signatura. That is, signature fracture, as the size and shape it resembles the striking surface of the weapon. It is caused by blows from a heavy weapon with a small striking surface like hammer, axe, stone, etc. Okay. This is called comminuted fracture. When there are multiple fracture lines, they are intersecting with each other and there are multiple fragments of bone. However, the Pape's rule is maintained, as you can see, that the new fracture line never crosses the older fracture line. It stops at the pre-existing fracture line. So this is caused due to fall from a height on a hard surface in vehicular accident, or blows with weapon with a broad striking surface, that is a heavy iron bar, thick sticks, etc. There are multiple fracture lines with multiple bony fragments. This resembles a spider's web or mosaic. So mosaic fracture is also another name for it. Bone fracture. Bone fracture is usually seen in neonates or infants when the skull is still elastic, where here the inner table is fractured, outer table remains intact. This is caused due to obstetric vertebrae or blow from a blunt object or forcible impact against a protruding object. Butter fracture is when a portion of the bone is removed due to an oblique force. It is usually seen in a glancing bullet injury. Here the bullet doesn't enter within the skull, but it grazes along and it removes a portion of the outer table with it. So this is butter fracture. Ring fracture is, it is a part of the base of the skull, and ring fracture is seen around the foramen magnum, few centimeter outside, 3 to 5 centimeter outside foramen magnum. It is usually seen due to fall from height and the person lands on the buttocks or feet. The force is transmitted via the vertebral column and ring fracture can be seen. Also, blow to the vortex, that is on the top of the skull, and the forces are transmitted in a way that can lead to ring fracture. Blow on the chin or sudden violent turn of the head in a when a person who is riding in a car and the car meets an accident and suddenly stops, then that can, the person is wearing seat belt, so that can result in a sudden violent turn of the head. Here the vertebral trauma column remains static, but the head moves around with it, so ring fracture can be seen. This is called diastatic or sutural fracture, that is separation of the bones along the suture lines due to impact of a hard blunt weapon. This is seen in young subjects. We will discuss fracture of the base of the skull. This is produced by forces applied directly at the level of the base of the skull, that is on the chin or on the back of the head. Ex Extension of the forces from the vault due to general deformation of the skull, or forces can be transmitted via the spinal column. So there are forces that are directly at the level of the base, that is on the chin, or they are transmitted via the spinal column, as in fall from height, lands on the buttock and feet. Extension from the vault or general deformation. So these are the four same ways as the ring fracture is produced. These are the same these are the same four forces, because ring fracture is a type of base of the skull fracture. It occurs in the base of the skull. Most basal fracture, they tend to meet at or runs through the pituitary fossa. Fracture line usually opens in the basal foramina, that is hundreds of foramina are there in the base due to passage of the nerves. So the fracture lines usually pass through them. Sphenoidal fissure is most commonly affected. So blow at the level of the chin or mandible, it produces fracture of the glenoid fossa or fracture of the cribriform plate. Fracture of the roof of the orbit, it is seen due to fall on the back of the head, that is a person falls and the back of the head violently strikes the ground. That force is transmitted through the base of the skull, and base of the skull fracture occurs at the roof of the orbit, or blow on the top of the head, or sudden violent increase of the internal pressure. Now, how the fracture occurs? The fracture can be either longitudinal, that is front to back or back to front, due to blunt impact on the face or forehead or back of the head, or compression, front to back or back to front compression. That can lead to longitudinal fracture along the base of the skull. Transverse fracture is side to side compression and ring fracture due to transmission of force along the spinal column or from the vertex or direct application along the level of the chin. So, a brief recap of the anatomy. As we know that the base of the skull is divided into anterior cranial fossa, middle cranial fossa, posterior cranial fossa, and this is the central area. 70% of base of the skull fracture they are seen in the anterior fossa most commonly. Then is the central part is the next in line and rest in the medial and posterior. So medial and posterior are rare. Anterior fossa fractures due to direct impact on the chin. Middle cranial fossa fractures are seen direct impact behind the ear, and posterior fossa fractures are due to direct impact on the back of the head. Now this the base of the skull is unique than the other skull fracture, because other skull fractures they usually transmit the force inwards that can lead to injury to the brain or intracranial hemorrhage. But this base of the skull fractures they can present with some other additional complications. So what are those complications? Number one, fracture of the anterior cranial fossa. If you can remember the anatomy, the anterior cranial fossa can involve the different paranasal air sinuses, mostly the frontal, ethmoidal, sphenoidal. So if the sinuses are fractured, then there can be bleeding from the nose or mouth. The anterior cranial fossa can lead to the bleeding from nose or mouth due to fracture in the frontal, ethmoidal, or sphenoidal sinus. If the tibriform plate is fractured, then CSF and brain tissue can lead to the nose. This is called CSF rhinorrhea. Leptomeningitis is infection of the meninges due to transmission of infection through this base of the skull fracture. Cranial pneumatocele, if the air enters through these fractures, it can lead to a pneumatocele. Middle cranial fossa fracture through the base of the sphenoid. This will lead to bleeding through from mouth. If the sella tarsita is fractured and the sella tarsita communicates with an airway via the sphenoid sinus, then blood can pass into the bronchial tree. So if the patient can present with symptoms of aspiration pneumonia, he aspirates in the blood. Fracture of petrous temporal bone. In the petrous temporal bone, the blood and CSF they escape through the ear. This is called the CSF otorrhea. Blood can pass through mouth via the eustachian tube, that is from ears. It passes into the oropharynx via the eustachian tube, or bleeding from ear due to tearing of the posterior branch of medial meningeal artery. Posterior fossa fracture, the bleeding occurs behind the mastoid process. This is known as Battle's sign, B-A-T-T-L-E, Battle's sign. Large hematoma can present at the back of the neck. If the foramen magnum fractures, the cerebral, there can be an edema around the cerebellum, and there can be fatal herniation of the cerebral tonsil. That is, the cerebral tonsil can move downwards through the fractured foramen magnum, and that can lead to cranial nerve injury as they are stressed. Damage to the surrounding structure, shock. It can the fracture of the fracture line at the base of the skull can act as a portal for entry of the bacteria. That fat and bone marrow embolism is always a theoretical possibility, and in case of a depressed fracture of the base of the skull, very rare situation, it when occur, it can lead to severe dysfunction or coma or death. Is a raccoon eyes or bilateral black eye. Bilateral black eye or raccoon eye is specifically seen in bilateral anterior cranial fossa fracture. So bilateral anterior cranial fossa fracture, blood trickles down and accumulates around the eyes, leading to both side black eye. This is called raccoon eyes. This is battle sign on a bruise over the mastoid process. This is seen in the fracture of the medial cranial fossa. Halo sign or CSF rhinorrhea. In CSF rhinorrhea, if there's bleeding or discharge through the nose, if one drop of the blood is put on a white handkerchief, this central red area is surrounded by a transparent halo. This halo is due to presence of the CSF. Blood is centrally, CSF is lighter in specific gravity, less viscous, so it moves away, and CSF is dried peripherally. So this transparent halo is due to CSF. This is called halo sign. So both of these are seen in different types of base of the skull fracture. So with that, I will conclude today's part. So thank you very much. So I hope that you will go through the lecture and read the stuff from your textbooks also. And if you have any type of doubt, please feel free to reach to me. You can call me or WhatsApp me or drop a message in the comments. I will try to answer them to the best of my abilities. Thank you very much.